They laughed when no one danced with her. What giant Viking did will leave you speechless. The wind howled over the snow-covered hills, carrying with it whispers of an old winter tale. Inside the grand hall of the Viking stronghold, torches flickered, casting long shadows on the stone walls. The banners of ancient clans hung proudly, some frayed with age, others shining bright with the colors of battle and glory. The winter feast was underway, a celebration of strength, courage, and heritage. The hall was alive with the sound of laughter, the clatter of goblets, and the deep tones of the old bards singing songs of warriors long past.
Among the crowd moved a young woman named Era. She was unlike the nobles and warriors gathered in the hall.
Her clothes were simple, made from the warm wool of her village, not embroidered with gold or furs. Her hair, dark as midnight, framed a pale face that carried both grace and quiet sadness. She had traveled far to reach the stronghold, invited only by the word of a distant relative. Yet, as she walked into the hall, she could feel the eyes of the assembly resting on her, some curious, others mocking. "Doan!" stepped forward to greet her. "No one asked her to dance!" The whispers began, soft at first, then rising into laughter. "Who is she?" One noble woman sneered, pointing a jeweled finger. "Does she think she belongs here?" Another man laughed openly, his voice carrying across the hall. "Perhaps the little mouse wants to join the lions." Era felt her chest tighten. Her heart beat fast, not from fear, but from the sting of being unseen, of being treated as though she were nothing. She tried to hide behind a gentle smile, moving toward a quiet corner, hoping the laughter would pass, hoping someone, anyone, would see her not as a joke, but as a person. And yet she noticed a shadow watching from the other side of the hall. Ragnar the Viking chieftain stood alone, tall and imposing. His presence alone silenced the noise around him. Broad-shouldered, with eyes like storm clouds and hair the color of dark ash, he was both feared and admired. He was known as a warrior who could crush a man with his bare hands, yet rumors spoke of a loneliness that even his strength could not fill. As the laughter around Era grew louder, Ragnar's gaze sharpened. He saw not the awkwardness or the fear, but something else, a quiet fire, a stubborn resilience. There was courage in the way she held herself, even as the hall mocked her. And there was beauty, too, not the flashy kind that made people turn their heads, but a deep, silent beauty that could not be hidden. The nobles continued to jeer, and Era's heart sank. She wanted to flee, to disappear into the night, but her feet remained rooted to the spot. Just as she felt tears beginning to form, Ragnar moved. He walked toward the center of the hall with long, confident strides, each footstep silencing those around him. The laughter faltered as all eyes turned to him. When he reached Era, he extended a large, calloused hand. "Come," he said simply, his voice low but firm, carrying the weight of authority.
Era's breath caught.
She looked at the hand, then into the eyes of this giant man, and she felt a strange warmth, a sense of safety she had never known. Slowly, she placed her hand in his. The moment felt electric, as though the air itself had changed. The hall seemed to shrink around them, the torches flickering with an almost magical glow. Ragnar led her to the center of the hall, where the space was empty. For a moment, no music played, no one moved, and the world seemed to pause. Then he began to dance. It was a simple, slow movement at first, just the two of them swaying in rhythm. But there was power in it, a quiet command that drew the attention of every person in the hall. Era followed, her movements hesitant at first, then gaining confidence as Ragnar guided her. She could feel his strength, the steady beat of his heart, the firm but gentle way he held her. For the first time that night she felt seen, not as a joke, not as an outsider, but as a woman worthy of attention, of respect, of admiration. The nobles watched, stunned. Perhaps some turned pale, others whispered in disbelief. The hall that had moments ago been filled with mockery was now silent, save for the music and the sound of their steps. Rarest own laughter, soft and genuine, rose from her lips as she began to move more freely. She had never danced like this before, and yet it felt as though every step had been written in her soul long ago. Ragnar did not speak. He did not need to. Breath. His eyes held hers, and in that silent communication, Ira felt something stir inside her, a mix of fear, longing, and curiosity. She wondered who this man truly was. Was he always this powerful, this commanding? Or was there a gentleness beneath the surface, hidden from the world? As the dance continued, a strange tension grew in the hall. The air seemed thicker, heavier, as though magic itself had awakened. Shadows flickered unnaturally against the walls, and the torches' flames danced as if caught in a wind that only they could feel. Ira shivered, but not from cold. She shivered from the feeling of being drawn into something larger than herself, something both terrifying and beautiful. The crowd began to murmur again, but this time with awe rather than ridicule. Who is she? One whispered. And who is the man dancing with her? Another muttered. I have never seen Ragnar look at anyone like that. Ira's heart beat faster. She felt the world shift beneath her feet, as though the dance was not just a movement of bodies, but a movement of fate. She wanted to ask questions, to understand, but the words would not come. She only knew that she did not want the dance to end. She wanted to stay in this moment forever, in the warmth of his presence, in the strange electric connection that seemed to hum between them. Ragnar's grip on her hand tightened slightly, not in control, but in reassurance. He was not just protecting her from the eyes of the hall, but from something else. Something unseen. The shadows in the corners of the room seemed to recoil from him, as though they feared his power, feared his will. And yet, in his gaze, there was also longing, a quiet ache that mirrored Era's own. The dance went on, and with each turn, each step, Era felt herself letting go of her fear. The laughter, the judgment, the isolation, all of it melted away under the warmth of Ragnar's eyes, under the rhythm of the music, under the strange magical force that seemed to bind them together.
She was no longer the forgotten guest.
She was the center of the hall, the center of something much larger than herself, though she did not yet understand what it was. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the dance ended. Ragnar stopped in the center, his hand still resting lightly on hers. The hall remained silent for a heartbeat, and then a ripple of whispers began to spread. The nobles stared, unsure whether to cheer or recoil, while others simply gaped. Ira's breath came in short, shallow gasps. She felt dizzy, as though she had stepped into another world. She looked up at Ragnar, wanting to speak, to ask him who he was, why he had chosen her. But her voice failed her. All she could do was stare, feeling a warmth in her chest that was unfamiliar and thrilling. Ragnar's eyes softened, and for the first time, he allowed a small, almost shy smile to appear. You are stronger than you think, he said quietly, almost to himself.
And braver than most?
Ira felt a rush of emotion. She wanted to ask what he meant, but before she could, a movement in the hall caught their attention. A figure, cloaked and mysterious, had appeared at the edge of the crowd. Their eyes glowed faintly in the torchlight, and they watched Ira and Ragnar with an intensity that made the hairs on the back of her neck stand on end. The hall seemed to hold its breath. Ragnar's expression darkened slightly, a shadow crossing his features. He did not release Ira's hand, but his stance shifted, protective, alert. The figure took a step forward, then stopped, melting back into the shadows. Era felt a chill run down her spine. Who is that? She asked softly. Ragnar did not answer immediately. Breaths. He only tightened his grip on her hand, pulling her slightly closer. We will see soon enough, he said. But you must be ready. Not everything in this hall or in this world is what it seems. Ira swallowed, a mixture of fear and curiosity swirling inside her. She realized that the dance, the warmth, the connection she had felt was only the beginning. Something larger was waiting for her, something that would challenge everything she knew about courage, about love, about herself. As the music resumed and the hall began to return to its celebration, Era stayed close to Ragnar, feeling the strength in his presence. She had come as a forgotten guest, laughed at and ignored. But now she felt the stirring of something new, something powerful. And she knew, deep in her heart, that her life would never be the same again. The night outside the Viking stronghold was bitter and still. Round. Snow drifted across the hills, covering the ground in a thick white blanket. The wind carried secrets from long ago, whispering tales of power, magic, and forgotten oaths. Inside the stronghold, the fire burned brightly in Ragnar's long hall. The room was quiet now, the echo of the winter feast fading into memory. The hall was lined with relics of past victories, weapons polished and gleaming, shields carved with ancient runes, and tapestries depicting battles of long-forgotten warriors. Eira followed Ragnar into the hall, still trembling from the events earlier. Her heart raced, not from fear but from the strange thrill of being near him. The warmth from the fire contrasted with the cold that lingered in the corners. But it was the strength of Ragnar's presence that made her feel both safe and alive. Ragnar guided her to a seat near the hearth. He did not speak at first, only letting the firelight illuminate the lines of his face. Strong, stern, yet shadowed by a hint of sorrow. For a moment, Ira wondered what kind of life a man like him had lived. Was his strength the result of victories in battle, or was it forged from pain and loneliness? Finally, he broke the silence. You are far from home, he said, his deep voice gentle, yet carrying authority. This hall, this clan, it is not a place for strangers.
Yet you faced their laughter?
That takes courage. Era lowered her gaze, unsure how to respond. I did not know what else to do, she admitted softly. I thought maybe, just maybe, someone would see me. Breath. Ragnar's eyes softened, the stormy gray in them shifting to something warmer. Most people do not see what is worth seeing, he said. They see only the surface. But you, berates, there is something about you, something stubborn, strong. Eira felt a strange warmth rise in her chest. No one had ever spoken to her like this, as if she mattered, as if she were more than a passing shadow in the world. She dared to look up at him, and for a moment she thought she glimpsed a vulnerability behind the power. But the quiet was broken by a sudden movement at the edge of the hall. A figure, cloaked and mysterious, lingered in the shadows near a window. Ira tensed, sensing danger even without understanding why. Ragnar's posture stiffened. The shadow seemed to twist unnaturally, as if it were alive, watching them with unblinking eyes. Do you feel it? Ragnar asked, his voice low. The air, it is not empty.
Era nodded.
Brace. A chill ran down her spine, stronger than the winter cold.
What is it? She whispered. What is it?
It is old, he said. A curse that follows my blood. a shadow that punishes those who try to love, who try to open themselves. Era's heart skipped a beat. A curse! Ragnar nodded, his expression grave. For generations, my family has carried it. It grows stronger when fear or anger takes hold. It feeds on isolation, on distrust, on weakness. I have learned to live with it, to control it, mostly. But even I cannot escape it entirely.
Ira felt a mix of fear and fascination.
A curse. A shadow that could touch his life, even with all his strength. But yet, he had chosen her. He had stepped into the hall, taken her hand, and made her dance in the face of laughter and scorn. Breath. Something about that gesture felt brave, almost heroic. She wondered, why had he risked so much for her? Before she could ask, a sudden noise echoed from the hall entrance. The cloaked figure had entered, moving with quiet grace, almost like a shadow herself. Burrs. Her presence seemed to suck the warmth from the room, leaving a cold tension behind. You dare bring her here, the figure said, her voice like ice. Do you not know what lies ahead? Ragnar stepped forward, placing himself between Ira and the stranger. His massive frame was imposing, but there was no anger in his voice, only a controlled fury. I will protect her, he said simply. The woman lowered her hood, revealing eyes that gleamed like pale fire. Her name was Skadi, a sorceress whose magic had long been feared across the lands. She had reasons to despise Ragnar's family, old grudges rooted in betrayal and bloodshed. She had watched the dance at the feast, had seen the bond forming between Ragnar and Eira, and now she had come to test it. You know nothing of what you have brought into your life, Skadi said, her tone sharp. She is not safe with you. Not from me. Not from the shadows that follow. Eira's stomach churned, fear twisting her insides. Bray. What do you mean? She asked. Ragnar's hand brushed her shoulder in a comforting gesture. Do not fear yet, he said. But you must understand, the world I live in is not simple. There are forces that move in the dark, forces that test us. Scotty's eyes narrowed. She raised her hands, and the shadows in the corners of the room began to writhe unnaturally. The flames flickered violently, throwing the room into shifting darkness. Ira clutched her cloak, heart pounding. She had heard tales of magic, of witches and sorcery, but she had never seen it so alive, so dangerous.
Step forward if you dare, Scotty said, her voice echoing in the hall.
Face the power that you know nothing of. Ragnar's grip on Eira's hand tightened. Stay behind me, he said, his voice calm but firm. Whatever comes, I will protect you. But Eira shook her head. I will not hide, she said. Her voice was small but determined. I want to help. I want to face it. Ragnar looked at her, surprise and admiration crossing his face. No one had ever spoken to him like that, not in his family, not in his clan. She was small, fragile in appearance, yet fearless in a way that made him uneasy and proud at the same time. Scotty laughed softly, a sound that made the air shiver. Very well, she said, breath. Then we shall see. The shadows obey me, but they are drawn to the fear in your hearts. You will need courage, little one, for this is only the beginning. With a flick of her wrist, Scotty sent a shadowy creature gliding across the hall. Its form was dark and shifting, eyes glowing like coals. It moved with unnatural speed, heading straight for Eira. She froze, unable to move, her breath catching in her throat. Ragnar lunged forward, his massive hands catching the shadow just before it reached her. The creature hissed and recoiled, smoke curling from its edges. Ragnar threw it to the ground, and it dissolved into darkness, leaving behind only a faint whisper of anger.
You see, Scotty said, fear makes even the strongest falter.
But the heart of the brave, it may survive, perhaps. Era's knees shook. She realized the danger she had stepped into. This was not a simple world of feasts and laughter. This was a world where magic could kill, where shadows could reach into the heart, and where courage was tested in ways she could not yet understand. Ragnar knelt beside her, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You are stronger than you know," he said. "Brace. You faced the hall, the laughter, and now you face this. That courage, Brace, it is rare."
Era looked into his eyes, feeling a strange connection, a bond that went deeper than fear or admiration.
I trust you," she whispered. Ragnar's jaw tightened. Trust was not something he gave lightly, and yet he felt it. The pull of her spirit, quiet and unwavering. "And I will not fail you," he promised. Scotty stepped back, the shadows around her flickering like dying flames. Breath. "This is only the first test," she warned. "The curse will grow stronger, the shadows more cunning. You have not seen the worst." Era swallowed hard. She realized that her life had changed forever. She was no longer the forgotten guest. She was a participant in something much larger, something dangerous, magical, and powerful. And she would have to face it with Ragnar, the man who had saved her from humiliation, who had seen her courage, and who now stood as her protector in a world of shadows. As the night deepened, Era and Ragnar stayed near the fire, speaking softly. Ragnar told her fragments of his past, of battles fought, of losses endured, and of the burden the curse carried. Years, Era listened, absorbing each word, understanding that the man she had seen as a giant warrior was also a man of sorrow and longing, someone trapped by forces beyond his control. And as they spoke, the wind outside howled again, carrying with it a warning. The shadows that Scotty commanded were not yet finished. They lingered, waiting, watching, and growing stronger with every heartbeat. Ira shivered, not from cold, but from the knowledge that her journey had only begun. She felt a mixture of fear and excitement, a strange anticipation of what was to come. And she knew, deep in her heart, that she could not turn back now. The next morning, a thin layer of frost covered the hills surrounding the Viking stronghold. The sun rose pale and cold, struggling to pierce the winter fog. Inside the hall, the fire had dimmed, leaving long shadows in the corners. Era sat by the hearth, still feeling the memory of the previous night, the dancing, the courage she had found in the shadow that had haunted her from afar. Ragnar did not speak much. Breath, his eyes, stormy as ever, watched the horizon through the tall windows. He was quiet, but Era felt the weight of his thoughts, the constant vigilance against threats unseen. There was a tension in the air that she could not name, a feeling that danger was approaching, one they could not yet fight openly. "You must understand," Ragnar said finally, his voice low, carrying the weight of authority and concern. "The world you have stepped into is not safe. There are forces beyond swords, beyond men, Britt. Shadows linger where curses are old, where anger and sorrow once ruled. My family carries one of those curses. And now, you are part of it." Era shivered, feeling the truth in his words. She had felt the darkness, the cold that had brushed against her last night, and the way Scatty's presence had seemed to warp the air. Yet, despite the fear, there was a part of her that thrilled at the challenge. She had survived ridicule, humiliation, and now she faced magic she did not understand. Something inside her stirred. A courage she had not known existed. "I am not afraid," she said, though her voice trembled slightly. If you are with me, I can face whatever comes." Ragnar looked at her, a mixture of admiration and caution crossing his face.
"Do not mistake bravery for ignorance," he warned. "The shadows will test you in ways you cannot yet imagine."
Fear can twist the strongest heart. Aya nodded, determined.
She would not allow herself to be weak. She would not allow the curse or the shadows to control her. As they prepared to leave the hall and face the dangers outside, a sudden movement caught their eyes. From the forest beyond the walls, a figure emerged, moving with unnatural speed and silence.
It was Skadi, the sorceress, her pale eyes fixed on them like cold fire. Shadows clung to her form, twisting and writhing like living creatures. "You cannot hide," she said, her voice cutting through the morning fog. "The curse grows stronger. It will demand more than courage, more than loyalty, more than you can give." Ragnar stepped forward, blocking Era from the path of the shadows. "We will face it together," he said firmly. "Whatever you throw at us, we will not break." Scotty's lips curved into a thin, cruel smile. "We shall see." With a flick of her hand, she sent the shadows rushing toward them. Dark tendrils snaked across the ground, twisting like serpents, moving faster than any human could. Era felt her heart race, but she had never faced anything like this. She wanted to run, to hide, but Ragnar's hand found hers, steadying her. "Do not fear," he said. "Trust me, and trust yourself." Taking a deep breath, Era focused. She felt the warmth of Ragnar's hand, the strength in his presence, and something inside her clicked. Desk. She had courage. She had determination. And she would not let the shadows win. Together, they stepped forward. The tendrils of shadow reached for them, but Ragnar moved with precision, striking them with his massive fists, shattering the dark forms before they could touch Era. She followed his movements, dodging and stepping carefully, learning to move with him, to anticipate the shadows. It was a dance, terrifying, dangerous, yet strangely beautiful.
"Keep your mind steady," Ragnar instructed.
"Fear gives them power." Era nodded, her focus sharpening. She remembered the dance in the hall, how she had moved with him, how their steps had matched perfectly. Now, it was not a dance of music, but a dance of survival, of courage and instinct. She felt herself grow stronger with each passing moment, her fear giving way to determination. Bah! Scotty's laughter echoed through the forest, a sound that made the air shiver. "You think this is all?" "This is only the beginning," she called. "The shadows will test your bond, but only one may survive without breaking."
Ira's stomach twisted. The words were meant to frighten her, to make her doubt Ragnar, to plant seeds of fear and mistrust.
But instead, they strengthened her resolve. She would not let them win. She would face the shadows with him together. The battle continued, the shadows swirling around them like a living storm. Ragnar's strength was unmatched, but even he could not reach every threat.
Era began to move instinctively, stepping into the gaps, using her small size and agility to dodge and disrupt the tendrils of dark magic.
Together, they formed a rhythm, a partnership forged in danger. And then, as if sensing a moment of weakness, a massive shadow emerged from the forest. It was taller than any man, its eyes glowing like molten gold. It moved with terrifying speed, its form constantly shifting, impossible to anticipate. Ira froze, caught in its gaze, feeling the weight of fear pressing down on her.
"Step back!"
Ragnar shouted, moving to shield her.
But Ira shook her head.
"No," she said firmly. "I will not hide. I will not run." Ragnar hesitated, then nodded. "Then we face it together," he said. The shadow lunged at them.
Ragnar met it with his full strength, but it was relentless, striking with unnatural force. Era realized she had to act,
but she focused, remembering the courage she had felt at the feast, the warmth of trust she shared with Ragnar. She reached out, stepping into the light of her own determination, and shouted a word she did not know she knew, the name of the courage within her. To her surprise, the shadow recoiled, its form flickering. Ira took another step, moving closer, and another, until she found herself standing beside Ragnar, unafraid. Breaths. Together, their presence formed a light the shadow could not touch. Skadi's eyes widened. "Impossible," she whispered. "How?" Ragnar turned to her, his expression fierce. "The bond between us is stronger than your shadows," he said. "You will not divide us." Era felt a thrill run through her. For the first time, she realized that the power she held was not just in her hands or her body, but in her heart. In trust, in courage, in the willingness to face fear without running. Round, Skadi's form wavered, the shadow shrinking around her as the light between Era and Ragnar grew brighter. She hissed, a sound of frustration and anger, and vanished into the forest, leaving only the echo of her voice. Era sank to her knees, exhausted but triumphant. Ragnar knelt beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder.
"You were amazing," he said quietly. "You did not falter."
"You faced the shadows." Era looked up at him, her chest heaving. I couldn't have done it without you," she admitted. "And I could not have done it without you," he said. "This connection, this trust, it is stronger than any curse, stronger than any shadow." For a moment, they simply looked at each other, the world around them forgotten. The snow fell quietly, covering the tracks of battle, as if the night itself wished to honor their courage. But the calm did not last long. From the distant hills, a faint glow flickered, moving like a watcher in the dark. Era shivered, feeling the presence of something that had not yet revealed itself. She knew the shadows were not gone. They had only been delayed, gathering strength for the trials yet to come. Ragnar noticed her glance toward the hills.
"We are not safe yet,"
he said, breath. "The curse is not gone. It will test us again, and it will demand more than courage. But we will face it together."
Era nodded. She felt a strange mix of fear and excitement.
The danger ahead was unknown, but she also knew that she had found something she had never known before. Trust, courage, and the stirring of a bond that could withstand even the darkest shadows. As they began their journey back to the stronghold, the wind carried a whisper across the snow-covered hills. It was a voice, faint but unmistakable, carrying a warning and a promise. The shadows watch, and the test has only begun. Era held Ragnar's hand tightly, feeling the warmth and strength of his presence. She had faced fear, she had faced magic, and she had survived. But deep down, she knew the next challenge would be even greater. The bond between them would be tested, and the shadows would not forgive weakness. And yet, for the first time, Era felt a thrill that she had never known. She was part of a story much larger than herself, a story of courage, magic, and love that had only just begun. The storm had come suddenly, sweeping across the hills like a living thing. Snow whipped in icy sheets, and the wind howled through the trees, carrying with it a voice that seemed almost human. Era clutched her cloak tighter around her, struggling against the cold as she followed Ragnar through the forest. The air was thick with magic, the lingering touch of Skadi's curse evident in every shadow and swirl of snow.
Ragnar moved ahead with powerful, confident strides, his massive frame cutting through the snow. Yet even he seemed tense, his eyes scanning every shadow, every movement between the trees.
Era felt the weight of the danger pressing down on her, but she also felt a strange calm when she was near him. His presence was steady, grounding, as though he were a shield against the unseen threats of the cursed forest.
"We must reach the old temple,"
Ragnar said over the wind, his voice firm.
"It is the only place where we can confront the curse and end this."
Power there. It is old. Older than Skadi. Older than my family.
"It will respond to courage and trust." Era nodded, her heart pounding.
She did not fully understand how courage and trust could defeat shadows and curses, but she knew that if anyone could lead her through this, it was Ragnar. The path was treacherous. Frost-covered roots reached out like claws, and snow hid deep holes in the ground. Every step demanded attention. Every breath burned her lungs with the icy air, and all around them shadows moved, flickering and twisting as if alive, sent by Skadi to weaken their resolve. "Stay close," Ragnar said, his hand brushing hers. "Do not let fear divide us. That is how the shadows win."
Era squeezed his hand, drawing strength from him.
Breath. She felt a warmth, a quiet determination that burned brighter than the fear around them.
"I won't let them win," she said. "Not as long as I am with you!"
Ragnar glanced at her, a small, rare smile breaking through his usually stern expression. "And I will not let you face them alone," he said. Breath. "Together we are stronger than any shadow." They reached the temple as night fell. The structure was ancient, its stones etched with runes that glowed faintly in the darkness. Snow had drifted over the roof, and icicles hung like delicate crystals from the edges. The air around the temple thrummed with power, both dangerous and inviting. Inside, the hall was vast and silent. The only light came from the runes, casting a soft, ethereal glow across the stone floor. Shadows twisted unnaturally in the corners, as though the darkness itself were alive, watching, waiting. Skadi appeared in the doorway, her pale eyes gleaming with malice. "So, you have reached the temple," she said, her voice like ice. "But do not think you have won. The curse will demand its price. One of you may fall, and the other will watch, helpless." Era's stomach tightened. She had feared this moment, the ultimate test, the final challenge. But she stepped forward, standing beside Ragnar, feeling the courage they had built together. "We face it together," she said firmly. Skadi laughed, and the shadows surged forward. They twisted into monstrous forms, shapes of fear and doubt, trying to reach for them, to separate them. Era felt her heart pound, but she did not falter. She reached for Ragnar's hand, letting their bond form a shield stronger than any magic. Ragnar's voice was steady and commanding. "Stand with me. Do not let fear take hold. Trust in yourself. Trust in me." The shadows shrieked, recoiling at the strength of their connection. Era felt a warmth flow through her chest, a power she did not understand but knew was real. Bus. It was the courage, the trust, and the bond she shared with Ragnar that made the shadows falter. Skadi's eyes widened, but she had never seen such strength, such unity.
"Impossible!" she hissed. "The curse!"
"It cannot be broken by mere trust." But the temple responded.
The runes on the walls glowed brighter, feeding on their courage, channeling the power of their bond.
Vibration. Light and shadow clashed, twisting and turning in the air. Ira felt herself pulled into the flow, but she did not resist.
She let her fear and doubt go, focusing entirely on Ragnar and the trust between them. The shadows roared, but with every step they took together, the darkness weakened. Ira realized that the curse's power came from isolation, from fear, from doubt. By standing together, by trusting one another, they were stronger than the shadows, stronger than the magic that sought to divide them. Ragnar's strength was awe-inspiring. He moved with precision and power, shattering the darkest shapes that came near. But it was Era's courage, her willingness to face fear without running, that turned the tide. She felt herself glowing from within, a light fueled by trust, bravery, and love. Scotty tried one final attack, sending the largest shadow forward. It towered over them, eyes burning like coals. Era's heart pounded, but she did not retreat. She stepped forward, hand in hand with Ragnar, facing the creature. Together they moved in perfect rhythm, a dance of light and courage that the shadow could not overcome. With a final surge, the shadows dissolved into nothingness, the cursed magic breaking under the force of their unity. The temple fell silent, the runes dimming, leaving only the soft glow of the firelight and the calm of the night. Scatty fell to her knees, defeated, her power spent. Psh! She looked at them, eyes filled with shock and grudging respect. You have done what no one thought possible, she said softly. The curse, it is gone. Ira sank to her knees, exhausted but triumphant. Ragnar knelt beside her, brushing snow from her cloak. You are amazing, he said quietly.
You faced fear, shadows, and doubt. You were stronger than even I could have hoped. Ira looked up at him, feeling a surge of emotion she could not name.
Relief, pride, love, and something deeper, all mixing in a warmth that spread through her chest. Breath.
I could not have done it without you, she admitted. Ragnar's stormy eyes softened, a rare gentleness appearing.
And I could not have done it without you, he said. We are stronger together.
That is the truth the curse could never understand. They stood, brushing snow from their cloaks, and looked out over the hills.
The storm had passed, leaving the land peaceful, quiet, and still. The shadows were gone, replaced by the soft glow of moonlight on snow.
Ira realized something profound. She had come as a guest, laughed at and ignored, and now she was part of something far greater.
She had faced fear, magic, and darkness, and she had survived, and she had done it with Ragnar. Strong, fierce, but also kind and protective.
Ragnar placed a hand over hers. This is not the end, he said.
The world still holds dangers, and there are shadows yet to face. But we have proven that together we are stronger than any darkness. Ira smiled, feeling a deep sense of peace. Then I will face whatever comes, as long as you are with me.
Ragnar's gaze softened further, and for the first time he allowed a smile that was not just for appearances, but for the bond they shared. And I will be with you, he said. Always. For a long moment they simply stood together, hand in hand, looking out over the frozen hills. The wind whispered softly, carrying the memory of the shadows that had once haunted them, now banished by courage, trust, and unity. But even as they stood in triumph, a faint glow appeared in the distance, on the horizon. It was not dark nor menacing, but it reminded them that the world was vast
and full of mysteries. There would be challenges, yes, but they now had something stronger than fear, something that could never be broken. Their trust, their courage, and the bond that had formed between them. Ira leaned her head on Ragnar's shoulder, feeling the warmth of his presence. Breaths. The one laughed at and ignored, but now she was a warrior of courage, a companion in battle, and something far more, a partner to the giant Viking who had chosen her in a world full of shadows. As the night deepened, the snow glimmered under the moonlight. The long journey, the curse, and the shadows were behind them, and the path ahead was bright with possibility. They would face it together, and no darkness could ever tear them apart.